So welcome everyone to the JB Media Institute Digital Drop-In. I'm so happy to be here with everyone today. And unlike some of our past digital drop-ins, it's just me today. So we're just going to have an intimate conversation about websites. And for those of you who are new to the digital drop-ins, after we are done today, we will put together a recording of this webinar and we will provide you with a slide deck. So don't feel like you have to write everything down or remember everything. You'll get a copy of all the information and you can dig into learning more on your own in the future. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sarah Benoit. I'm the co-founder and lead instructor of the JB Media Institute. And I also own a company called Creative Original Incorporated. And with that company, I basically build websites, usually small business websites. And I do a lot of website consulting around search engine optimization and other types of just web marketing and web promotions. So again, I want to invite everyone for this to be a conversation today between me and all of you. And if you have specific questions about your website, don't hold back. You don't have to wait until the end. If you don't want to, feel free to add them to the Q&A. There is a Q&A option, and I will be monitoring that the entire webinar today. You can also put things in the chat. The chat, of course, is a little more difficult for me to keep up with, but either way, I'll be monitoring both and making sure that I answer any questions that come up. So today I'm really excited because I wanted to talk about the truth about websites. And I want to preface this with the fact that I am not necessarily a trained, academically educated web designer or developer. So although I've been doing this a long time, it's been 17 years since I started, I really did teach myself everything. And I learned a lot by doing, by trying things out, testing things out, and failing, and then doing it a different way and seeing how that changed the results. I've also been lucky enough throughout my entire career to work with an amazing amount of other web designers. So I think in our field, what happens is there's no way for you to really be an expert on everything. It's literally impossible. And so you have to kind of have friends in your circle that when you're struggling with something, you have questions, you're trying to put together ideas, that you have some other people to run it by. So I just wanted to mention that because I do feel if you are more academically trained, you might have some different opinions about some of what I'm going to present today. But for me, I think this is what I've really learned by being in the field and doing this process of building a website, managing websites over and over and over in my weekly life. So I think there's some key things that we all have to be thinking about when it comes to our websites. And it's not just the details of how your website works or how to promote it. It's also having a kind of mindset that you kind of bring to the table when you're approaching your website. So before we dig into the slides, I just wanted to say that the cornerstone of that mindset is really understanding that your website should be an organic, living, changing thing in your business, right? It is not a static tool, and it isn't meant to be a static tool anymore. And when we look at all the different ways that we can promote online, whether that's through search engine optimization or social media or public relations or online advertising, what we find is that all of those things kind of push us into this mindset where our website becomes this tool that actually grows and changes alongside of our business. It grows and changes alongside of our goals. And it evolves and adapts based on the different campaigns that we're running, the different challenges that we're facing, the different problems that we're trying to solve. So I feel like if you took nothing away from today, that cornerstone of what I consider to be a healthy mindset about your website is one of the most important things to cultivate. And what this means, and I say this a lot about digital marketing in general, but what this means is your website's never finished. You never get to wash your hands of it. You never get to just put it away and say, I don't have to worry about that anymore. You never sort of cross a finish line when it comes to your website, right? There's always ways to improve. There's always ways to better engage people. There's always fresh content that can be added. there's just always new approaches and perspectives. And so that's not just about the technology anymore. That's about the way that we're actually using websites. That's about the fact that most people expect that the website that represents a brand is accurate and up to date and changing on a regular basis. And so even though the technology is part of it, and yes, Google wants us to do those things, at the same time, it's really about the human beings on the other end of the line when it comes to your website. So that's really where I think my perspective comes from when we're looking at how we can really look at website design, website development, website management, and be very realistic about it and use our websites to have the greatest impact that we can. So one of the things that I talk about a lot in different classes is essentially website usability and user experience. And this is because these topics are now becoming something that everyone needs to know about. It's not just for web designers and developers anymore. It's for business owners, it's for marketing professionals, it's for advertising professionals, it's for anyone that's going to be utilizing a website in some way. So we all have to start kind of working into our weekly and monthly workflows, time to really think about this, time to strategize around it, and time to continue learning about it, because it's sort of an ever-changing industry. Because as new technology comes out and things change, people's behavior shifts, and what they expect out of websites shifts as well. So I want to encourage everyone, I'm going to give you some resources at the end, but to really start thinking about website usability as a core piece, especially for those of us who are business owners. We really can't live in a world anymore where we're not knowledgeable about this in some way. We don't necessarily have to be the expert. We don't have to know how to do everything, but we do have to understand what goes into evaluating website usability and how it's impacting the rest of what we do. And like I said, website usability is part of UX design or user experience design, which is also part of UI, which is user interface. And this is where we go far beyond websites, right? Because everything that's designed has a UX and UI component of it. Even a physical room that you design the interior of. Let's say you're a bank, right? There's a lot of user experience that goes in to the design of the inside of a banking institution, right? Especially when it's where the public's going to come and make their deposits and do different things. So UX and UI really open us up to this amazing bigger picture of the idea that design impacts so many different parts of our lives, and that in all of these different parts of our lives, things are shifting and changing because human beings, our behavior is shifting and changing. So this is why I love this topic, because it really, it encourages us to take a step back and really look at the bigger picture in general. And so website usability at the end of the day is really just referring to how easy is your website to use, right? And the way that this is becoming more and more important, especially in marketing, is because Google has always had a focus on this. But in May of 2021, they're going to be making an algorithmic change that focuses on what they call page experience. And they started making changes related to this as far back as March of last year. So they've been doing a great job of sharing with everybody what the change is going to be and really explaining the motivations behind it. So with Google, when they say page experience, basically what they mean is that page experience signal measures aspects of how users perceive the experience of interacting with a web page, right? So this page experience, what they're going to define that as is essentially the signals, right? The ways that they are going to kind of track how users perceive interacting with different web pages. What I find interesting about this is it's not website experience, it's page experience. So what this means is every page of your website is an opportunity. And sometimes that can feel stressful, like it's opening up a whole bunch of options, right? If we have to look at every page of our website and evaluate it. What I want to encourage you to do is rethink that perspective, reframe it a little, and think about the fact that you don't necessarily have to change your entire website at once. You don't have to necessarily redesign the entire thing to create a better page experience. You can prioritize different pages that are more important and really enhance the experience there. and your website might perform better. So as a web designer and developer, I actually see that thinking about page experience means we don't have to try to tackle everything at once. We can actually really clearly look at data, come up with plans, and enhance the experience of different parts of the website until we're ready for a full redesign. So that actually gives us more options in a lot of ways. And I love that Google says optimizing for these factors makes the web more delightful for users across all web browsers and surfaces and helps sites evolve towards user expectations on mobile. So I just like their use of the word delightful. Google actually uses that word a lot, right? And so the basic idea here is something that I've talked about for a long time when it comes to Google, and that is Google just wants you to have an awesome website. That's how you get more traffic from them. That's how you get higher in the rankings. And this change that they're doing in 2021 is really going to reinforce that on a lot of levels. So page experience, like I said, is related to user experience. And Neil Patel says the simplest way to think about this new Google update is that user-friendly sites will rank higher than sites that aren't user-friendly. And Google wants to rank the sites at the top that users love the most. And so that just goes back to what I just said, right? Google is looking for websites that are awesome, give people what they want and expect, and are going to do really well on all devices, whether it's a smartphone, a tablet, or different sizes of computers, or even larger televisions if people are using their TV to access the web. Now, all that being said, the one thing I want to be clear that Google is saying about their big change this year is that even though they're going to focus on page experience, this doesn't necessarily override the importance of having great content. So a lot of times people say to me, what's better, short or long content? And the truth is there's no answer to that question. We have to go back to page experience, right? And we have to think to ourselves, what is the purpose of this page? And is the purpose of this page supported by longer content? If the purpose of the page is supported by that longer content, then we should include it. If the purpose of the page is supported by shorter content, then we should keep it shorter. And so a good example of this would just be if the purpose of the page is to educate someone about a topic so that they can be more capable of making decisions around a certain issue or about a certain service, right? Then that longer content can be really valuable. And we might want to have a number of sections on that page that help really educate the person. But if the purpose of that page is literally to get them to buy something, right? To buy a ticket to an event, to actually purchase a product, for them to sign up or register for something, then we really want to reduce the amount of content that's on that page and make that action step the primary focus, right? Because a lot of times we know people won't convert if we make it too difficult for them to decide. If they have to take too many steps to make the decision, we lose a lot of people. So that's just good examples of how purpose, I think, dictates whether or not we have longer or shorter content. And Google really wants us to be thinking about this in more depth, right? So I'm working on a few websites right now, and one of the things that I think is the most difficult to struggle with when working with clients is they write content for the website without any of this in mind. And so what I get is these long Word documents full of website content, but there's no real strategy or thought in how those pages, like what they're really there for. What are they going to do for the person visiting the website? What are the calls to action? All of that. We're thinking more about kind of writing essays, writing long pieces of content that explain who we are. And that content can be useful, but it has to be mixed in with this purpose-driven approach, because otherwise you just have long pieces of content on a website. And what happens is everyone who goes there bounces because they're being forced to read too much to get the point. The other thing I notice a lot is when people write their website content, there's no headings. There's no way for people to scan the page and get the main points. And that's a really, really important step. So one of the simplest things people can do to upgrade their website performance right away is if you have long pages of text where people can't land on that page and scan really quickly and understand the purpose of the page, then you need to go through and edit the content and add more headings and subheadings and potentially even add more buttons and calls to action that link them into things that are deeper into the website. So we're always going to be balancing great usability with great content. And Google wants us to put a lot of effort into that if we want to be ranking high in their system. Also, as we go into 2021, Google's focusing a lot more on mobile first indexing. So there's already been about 70% of the websites out there that are kind of already switched over to this. But now we're basically in 2021 going to 100%. That means every website that's out there, Google is looking at it from a mobile first perspective. And you can see here from the screenshot, if you have Google Search Console, the Search Console now shows you through the indexing crawler when the Googlebot smartphone switched over for you. So when did your website start getting more attention from a mobile first perspective? To me, this is really important for us to pay attention to and to make sure this year, if we haven't tested our mobile versions, if we haven't fixed any problems that we have in our mobile versions of our sites, that we actually spend some time doing that, because it's going to have an even greater impact than it's already had when it comes to, again, your Google authority and your Google rankings. So in addition, I think with website usability, having kind of an SEO type of focus, and also even if you just want to show up on Google for your own brand name or company name or organization name, right? You need to also kind of have those considerations in play from a Google standpoint. But in addition to that, usability is also kind of encouraging us to dive deeper on two levels. One is when we understand our brand at a deeper level, right? So we really start to understand the feelings we want people to have, the values, the character of our organizations and businesses, and we start to reflect that in the website experience more. And also we have to dive deeper in understanding our own audiences and what are their needs, their values, their abilities, their limitations. What do we think they expect when they get to the website? So this is also something that when you're evaluating your website, I think it's hard for a web designer or developer that's outside of your company to evaluate this part of it for you, right? You need to be able to communicate to somebody you're outsourcing to these deeper understandings. So to me, it's really important to be able to communicate to people, this is, the goals that we have as a brand. This is how we want to show up in the world as a brand. And also, this is what we know about our customers. This is what we know about what they care about and things like that. So again, this is where we get into more psychographics, not just demographics. And we dig more into our niche audiences, not just our broader audience, right? And we really start to design parts of the website for those people, whether it's pages of the website, it's certain content that's on there, whatever it is. And so this is where, as I was preparing for this, I was reading some new articles, and Forbes shared a great article, but my favorite thing that they said in it about just usability and UX in general was, in short, it doesn't and shouldn't take a background in web development to understand what a good user experience is, because it's intuitive, right? People, when it's right, people know it's right. And when it's wrong, people know it's wrong. And people are judging your website in the first 10 to 15 seconds that they land there. And so this is why, like I said at the beginning, it's not just for web designers and developers anymore, right? All people in marketing, all people in advertising, all business owners, we have to be a student of our customer experience. We have to be a student and really listen and learn from the people that we're serving about how our website can improve. We shouldn't be redesigning our websites without really taking that into account and having those deeper conversations. So there's a few best practices that I wanted to share that I think are pretty straightforward and anyone can apply regardless of skill level. And I also think these are great things to really think about. And again, if you're outsourcing to a web designer or developer, or you have a web design or web manager on staff, that you really have these conversations with them. So first, keep it simple, right? The KISS method all the way. This is hard because a lot of times we have a lot of things to say and a lot of things to share and a lot of different products and services. But the number one thing that I think most of my clients struggle with is really decluttering and making the experience of their website less complicated rather than more complicated. And it's incredibly important to always remember that some people on your website already know about your brand, already know about your organization or business, and they may have been to the website before. And so they're coming there with a little more clarity around what to do. Whereas the segment of people that are coming to your website for the first time, it has to be easy for them as well, right? So they've never seen your website before. They have to be able to get there and in 10 seconds figure out what it is that you want them to do and what you're about. And so to me, this is why simplicity matters so much. I feel like a lot of the conversations I have, we're dialing back, right? And I'm saying, okay, this menu is getting too cluttered. We're putting too many things on one page. This content that you wrote is so long. We really have to think about breaking it up into maybe multiple pages or multiple sections. And so there's a few basic principles that always kind of come up when we're talking about this. One is make the navigation easy. So when people click into your menu, remember, they're not always doing it on their computer. Sometimes they're doing it on their phone. And so they're going to see the menu in a completely different way when they click on those three little lines, right? Also, when it comes to design and just having more white space or just more open space in general on a website, having things that aren't so tight and grouped together that it kind of overwhelms people's brains, you really want to do the opposite with your design and layout. You want to put people at ease. You want to make them feel like they are having a delightful time, right? Like Google said, and enjoying themselves. And then you really want to make the calls to action really functional, visible, and clear. So the places where you want people to click, the places where you want them to sign up or register, the places where you want them to even call you, make that phone number clickable, right? So if they're on their mobile device, they can just click and call your office. The other thing that I really think is important is whether it's text links or buttons or other clickable items on a website, you really want to choose a color that's the same across the board. You don't want to have 5 different colors of buttons for people to click on because it makes it harder for them to identify which things are the clickable items. And so I just put some examples in here, right, of different types of calls to action. And so you can see I've sort of highlighted them in the circles, and I've pulled some of the mobile versions as well as tablet versions as well as desktop versions, right? And so all of this is what we call basically above the fold. It's the first screen people see. And I always want to have some type of call to action in that above the fold space that takes people to a next step, right? It gets them to go deeper into the website. And I really want to strategize around that, especially on the home page. And you can see where I'm trying to really create contrast for the buttons, right? So that they stand out, they're easy for people to see. And we're not just saying click here. We're literally putting in text that says what you're going to do, right? Book your appointment, learn more about my services, contact me, my bio, right? Free 15-minute consult. So we really want to tell people exactly what they're clicking on, right? Not just generic things like click here, right? So a few things that you can avoid when it comes to just clutter and, like I said, overcomplicating layouts or overcomplicating the website in general. Don't obsess over subjective details. So in a world where everything is responsive, everything has to be mobile friendly. A lot of times I'm working with people where they want to adjust the spacing in different places. They want less spacing here and more spacing here. But the problem is that's what we call breakpoints. And I have to pad everything that I put into the design so that when it goes from a larger screen to a smaller screen, nothing starts to lay over top of each other, right? And especially when it comes to colors. So a lot of times I'll have the hex codes for the colors of somebody's logo and their brand palette, and I'll use it, but people will notice it doesn't look the same on their phone, on their computer, on their big screen TV. And that's because we can't control that. There's different settings in how those displays work. And so the colors of different things might be slightly different. The one way that most of us can see this is if you look at a PC versus a Macintosh computer, right? The Mac computers have a different style of screen and the colors look different than they do on some PCs. So keep that in mind. A lot of times I'm working with somebody, they're asking me to go over all these tiny little details, and I have to say, well, these are not things we need to worry about, right? These are sort of built into the layout to make everything responsive, and there's going to be different devices, different browsers, all of this stuff. So nothing is going to be exactly the same all the time. We kind of have to let that go. Also, don't guess what customers want and need. Ask them and listen and learn from it. So if you're going to redesign your website and you already have a company, reach out to your customers and ask them for feedback. How do they think the website could be better? What do they think about a new feature that you want to add? Do they feel positive or negative about it? Before you spend the time paying somebody to redesign, get some actual feedback. And don't let the perfect be the enemy of the really good or the great. So again, websites are supposed to change, evolve, constantly improve. They don't have to be perfect. They just have to be user-friendly, and they have to give people, like I said, what they expected. Two, this goes back to understanding the page experience and the purpose behind the pages. So know your purpose. Really make sure that the website explains to people why you do things, why it matters, why they should be paying attention, right? Because that purpose, if you don't know it and you're not designing centered from that place, then it's going to be hard to really make sure that the visitors to your website understand the purpose of things. And so this is conversations that I'm constantly having with clients during the design process, right? And so identify the goals of the site and the purpose of each page. So why do we have these pages, and what is going to equal success for you when it comes to the website? Also, like I said, know your audience as well, not just yourself, but so you can really communicate to other people who it is that you want to reach. And you might have existing customers now, new markets that you want to open up. We need to know that kind of stuff because we're going to build things into the website to open those new markets or engage the markets that you already have. And like I said, all design should be created to literally convert people on all devices. So that's where once we build the website, we really have to do some testing at the end. And it's worthwhile to take that time to look at the mobile version, remove things that maybe are cluttering the mobile version, make sure that the buttons are high enough up on the page so people can see them, and make sure that when things respond, you don't lose the calls to action. So when it comes to the purpose of your website, every time I talk about this in other classes, I invite people to answer some of these questions, right? This is just kind of a checklist of different things that I like to talk about in my first meeting with a client. So, what is really the website about? Is it an online business card where people are just going to come, get information and leave? Do you expect people to actually contact you through the website? Are they purchasing something online? Is your website a place where you want different people to come and actually engage, right? So do you want them to read your blog? Do you want them to share your content on social media? Do you want them to sign up for your email marketing? Do you want them to download a free ebook or sign up for a free webinar, right? Because if that's the kind of engagement you're looking for, we need to build a website that really supports that, right? Is your website providing customer service to existing clients or donors if you're a nonprofit? So a lot of times I think we get so focused on new people, we forget that our website is sometimes providing support to the people who already believe in what we do, love our products and services, and want to spend their money with us. So how can we make sure that both of those groups of people, when they get to the website, really feel served? What are some things that your existing clients might need available to them online that would be easier? So a good example of this is I've worked a lot in healthcare. We're having patient forms and different things that you can complete online before you get to the office is really, really valuable. And so we want to make sure that not only is the new website attracting new people, but that it's really serving our existing clients and making their lives easier if we can. Are you going to have membership areas? Do you want people to be able to sign in or sign up to participate in sort of any type of content that's behind a paywall, something like that? And do you expect people to find your website when they're searching for things on Google? Your brand name, your business or organization name, as well as other keyword phrases and terminologies that maybe are broader and not related to your company, right? So we want to really say to ourselves, what is the answer to these questions? Because this directly impacts the decisions I make about a website when I'm building it or when I'm redesigning it, right? I'm going to ask a lot of these questions. I'm going to dig into it to make sure that I have different parts of the website set up to accomplish these goals. And so a lot of times, I've done a lot of website audits over the years for different people, and I love that type of work because I feel like it's just fascinating to go through people's websites and really dig in. I'm working on a big project like that right now that's been really enjoyable. But it is very easy for a lot of people, especially smaller businesses or marketing departments of one, right, where you have limited time, maybe you have limited resources to outsource this stuff. You can do your own kind of usability auditing at a very base level. And this is something I think everybody should be paying attention to again, right? At some point, whether it's once a quarter when you're looking at your analytics, you know, maybe it's every 6 months when you do some marketing strategy and planning, you really want to sit down, take a look at the website and really start to say, okay, let's quantify whether or not the website is working. So there's a few things here that I love to look at with people, again, to help us really get a handle on what the website is doing and how we might be able to improve. So first, what are the pages, which is basically the content, that are the most popular? So when we look at Google Analytics and we go into all of the data in there, there's an area under behavior where you can see all of your content. And you can really see which pages are getting the most traffic overall, right? Whether that's from social media, Google, people just typing in your name, it's sort of that bigger perspective, right? Out of all the different people coming to your website from different channels, what are the most popular pages and the most popular content? Again, if I want to go in and work on pages and make the experience better, I'm going to look at the things that are most popular first. Since that's where the majority of our people are, we want to make sure those pages are rocking, super well put together. They're doing their job. People get there, they stay on the page for a long time. Hopefully they click on something else, right? And so that's where we also want to include which pages are keeping people engaged longer. So it's not just about the total number of traffic, but it's also about the time spent on the page, right? So a page that's keeping people on it for 5 minutes, in the world of web design, that's amazing. That means we're doing something right on that page. How can we strengthen it and make it even stronger and keep people longer, maybe even give them stronger calls to action so they, again, keep going deeper into the site. Also, you can look at the specific channels and really see when people visit the site from other channels, which pages are they landing on? And do they stay on the site? Again, how long are they there? So a lot of times, to me, this is really helpful in seeing social media versus Google versus email marketing versus Google advertising. We can kind of see which one of those channels is producing higher engagement, right? And also, like I said, just driving more people to the site and which pages are really working out for us. You know, which blog posts have we shared that drove a lot more people than other blog posts? Which landing pages or pillar pages have we created that are really keeping people on the website longer? And then, of course, if you have conversion tracking or you have Google Analytics goals set up, sometimes you can see whether or not people are doing important actions. That means they're clicking on something. If you have e-commerce tracking, you can see if they're actually producing sales, right? So, you know, you can go up to that next level if you can work with your web designer or developer to create really clear tagging in your website so that you know when people are clicking on certain buttons and actually converting in certain ways. And so Google Analytics is really commonly used for a lot of this work. There's many other tracking tools out there that you could look into. I will advise Google is in the process of launching a new version of Google Analytics. And so in the past, we've had the Universal Analytics. It's the GA sort of number account style that they have. Now they're doing kind of a new version that's been launching over the last year. And so that older kind of layout of Google Analytics is going to change, although they're still providing a lot of the same data. But for those of you who are using Google, get prepared because that change is definitely coming. I'm learning about the new version now. And I believe it's sort of referred to as GA4, right? And it's interesting because it merges website tracking with mobile app tracking. And so that's a big leap forward as far as I think just tracking and reporting goes. But it's going to create a big learning curve for all of us. So get the most out of your universal analytics as you can, right? Because I would believe at some point Google will ask us all to switch over to the new version. So that's why I want to encourage people, if you're not using your analytics, 2021 is a great year to dig in and really learn from it. Right. 3, study common behaviors, right? So let people be your guide. There's lots of studies out there about usability. I'm going to give you some resources at the end, but you can learn all sorts of information about usability just by Googling it, right? And making sure that you're reading things that are really up to date. And I see The question here from Greenbelt, could you show us some examples of Google Analytic reports showing page traffic? I really can't today. We don't have time for that, unfortunately, because even just getting in there would take me a few minutes. But what I'll suggest is if you have Universal Analytics, which is the historical version we've all had for the last, 20 years, it's basically under behavior. So you're going to log in on the left-hand side. There's all these different sections. There's a section called behavior. And then when you click into behavior, you're going to see site content. And it's literally going to show you every page of your website and how much traffic it's getting. So that's how you would access that. But this is just a quick list of kind of usability basics. This is the kind of thing that you'll see when you're studying that, oh, hey, how are you doing? Welcome. Sorry, I saw the other name on your account, but glad to have you here. But essentially, you're going to find all sorts of different pieces of information because they study all sorts of different types of usability, right? All sorts of behaviors are tracked by different companies, different organizations. Google has a great website called Think with Google, where they study a lot of usability. But these are the kind of things when you start Googling it yourself, you're going to find out about, right? So on most websites, the navigation is across the top on a desktop or laptop. And if it's on the side, it's on the left-hand side. We don't usually see menus on the right-hand side, right? So that's kind of a usability basic. Nowadays, if you have a mobile-friendly website, you're going to see 3 little lines. That's what we call the hamburger menu. That has become kind of a standard. It's really better to have the 3 lines there because most people know what that is. If you have some type of different icon, it can be confusing for people to understand how to navigate the website. Clickable logos being in the upper left or in the center at the top of your header, right? Very common, making sure that when people click on the logo, they go back to the home page. Having color changes. So sometimes when I click on a menu item, it changes color. And so now I can see exactly which page I just clicked on, right? And if I'm rolling over buttons or clicking on buttons, they might change color a little bit, right? Those kind of things are basically, they are things that people are really used to nowadays, right? E-commerce websites, having the shopping cart in the upper right. If you want people to click on your phone number more often, put your phone number in the upper right. Right? That's a natural place where people's eyes go. So this is the kind of stuff that you're going to learn about. And even with websites that have big image sliders at the top of your homepage, or what we call carousels sometimes, make sure you have dots or you have little arrows, preferably, so that people can click through the slides on their own if they want. They don't just have to let it auto rotate, right? That's a big usability study. We see that people prefer to click through things than to have them automatically rotate on them. If they are going to automatically rotate, make sure you slow it down, right? To at least 10, 15 seconds. So people have time to digest what they see on that first slide before it's taken away and there's the next one. And again, we really see with mobile devices, again, there's just no way I can repeat enough how important it is when you make a change to your website to go look at it on your phone, right? And maybe even ask a few other people to look at it on their phones so that you can really make sure it's coming across correctly in as many different environments as possible. And especially in the United States, over 80% of people have smartphones and they greatly dominate how people access the internet, right? So smartphones are definitely the #1 device people are using to get online, to look at websites. And you can see this again in Google Analytics. When you go into audience, there's actually a section that has a breakdown of mobile devices versus desktops versus tablets. So you can actually see smartphones versus tablets versus desktop or laptop. And that really helps you understand what percentage of your audience is seeing you in that mobile environment. And so again, that's under audience in the Google Analytics. Again, on the left-hand side, I've got this long, great menu. You click in to look at the different pieces of data. So again, layout, what's above the fold on each device, and that's every important page that you've identified, right? Does it hold people's attention and engage them? Is there a clear next step? And are people going to be able to complete the main call to action really, really easily? You want to make sure when you build a new page, you've got those great buttons with a beautiful photo at the top, right? Make sure you test it. Make sure it works fully after you're done building it. or ask somebody else to do that test. Because a lot of times I see people adding things to their website, but they never test it afterwards. They don't realize a button is broken for like 3 months. They don't realize that a video is not playing correctly, right? Because they didn't actually go test the layout. And again, always think about headings. How can you add more headings to make all the text on your website easier to scan? Also, colors are really important. And this is something, again, you can Google and study. Color psychology is used in a lot of different scenarios, not just website usability. But I think we really want to think about our brand. Are the colors we're using on the website consistent to that? Is it getting across the right feeling? Have we ever asked our customers, especially if we were going to think about rebranding, have we ever asked them what they think about it? Do they have suggestions of how we could change things? And so this is just a basic overview of color psychology, keeping in mind it's subjective to a certain extent, especially because outside of the American culture that we live in, most of us, not all of us, but a good chunk of us on this call probably live in the United States. We have certain association with colors that would change if we were in a different culture. So this is not like a hard and fast rule, but there are some basic things we can learn about how colors are affecting people. And there's a lot of studies that color really affects how people assess products, assess companies, and when they purchase different things, sometimes it's color scheme that really drove them into the purchasing. If the colors made them feel good, then they were more likely to take action. And one of the baselines that we can all pay attention to is stimulating warmer colors like reds and yellows. They are great as accents and they're great as calls to action. So a lot of times having those warmer, more active colors as the buttons is going to be a positive, right? Whereas cooler colors like blues and greens, which are actually more pleasing to a larger piece of the population, right? So those cooler colors are sometimes things that people like better than they like the warmer colors. But when it comes to actually clicking, it's kind of two things that really impact that. One is whether or not the color is active, right? And that's where the warmer colors are more active in general for people, but also that the buttons or even the text links on your website, that they contrast from everything else. So they stand out and they're consistent across the board. That way, no matter what people see, whether it's a text link, a button, a graphic of some kind, if it's clickable and it's a call to action, they can identify it really, really quickly after they've surfed just a page or two of the website. Website accessibility is also a topic I wish we could dig into more today, but this is where we really get into the American Disabilities Act and how the laws are changing when it comes to accessibility. In the past, it's only been corporate websites, government websites, higher education websites, websites essentially that serve the public have been required to meet the accessibility guidelines. That's now changing. Smaller and smaller companies are now going to have to be thinking about this and really adapting their website to meet basic accessibility guidelines. It's funny, a lot of people think of people with disabilities as maybe people who are blind, maybe people that have mobility issues, but the truth is, operating the internet as a person who's differently abled it comes in every shape and form, right? Even just because we have an aging population of boomers that, maybe can't see super small text, they're having a more difficult time looking at their phone. I'm only 46 and I have trouble looking at my phone and reading things now. I just had to get new glasses ordered this week. So when we think about disabilities, we really want to get outside of kind of our old ways of thinking about that and just think about the fact that people have a wide range of different capabilities when it comes to using devices. And so there's certain standards that are being created. And even though it's not required for a lot of micro enterprises and small businesses that are, let's say, under 15 people, we are seeing that down the road, these laws are going to change. And so this is something I think, again, business owners have to really start kind of incorporating this into their conversations, talking to their web designers and developers about this. A lot of people in the web design and development field are studying this so that we understand the changes that are coming down the pipeline. And of course, there's some basic best practices. Again, this is where having headings on your page are really strong. Having captions for your videos will really help people. Having alt tags on photos so that people who are using screen readers, the screen reader can tell them what the image is if they're not able to fully see it. And then there's more technical things like, can people navigate the page just through shortcuts on their keyboard if they don't have the mobility to use a mouse, right? And again, this is where we go back to links, even on buttons. Don't say things like click here or more. If possible, say something clear about what exactly it is that they're clicking on, because again, that affects the screen readers and how the screen readers create context for people that are using that type of assistive technology. And then 5, every web page that you have, like I explained in the beginning, is an opportunity to succeed. It's an opportunity to convert people from your advertising. It's an opportunity to convert people from your social media, from your email marketing, from your Google traffic. And so every page of your website, to me, you have to be sort of thinking about whether or not it's really serving its purpose over time. And so this is where we really need to have in our workflow times in which we will go and look at our data and really test out our website pages and see if what we believe to be true about how easy to use it is really true. And sometimes this can just be asking 3 other people that you know in your circle that have not spent a lot of time on your website to go there and do something, right? So it's not, I mean, yes, we can hire people to test, we can do focus groups, we can do all sorts of stuff like that, but you can also just ask people to help out. So one of my favorite quotes at a conference I went to years ago was, the cheapest form of market research is lunch, right? And so asking people that you trust, and trying to get maybe 3 to 5 people that are different ages, from different backgrounds, and asking them to go to the website, look at a new page and give some feedback, or go to the website and complete an action and give some feedback can be really, really useful. And as far as Google tracking tools, Google Analytics is really, really valuable, but you've also got the Google Search Console, which displays a lot about your SEO and how well your website is doing on Google. It's really going to help you understand how they perceive the website when it comes to page experience. There's also the Google Mobile Friendly Testing tool and Google's Page Speed Insights tool. And so if you click these links, when you download a copy of this presentation, you can put any page of your website in there. You can put the homepage link, but you can put any other URL as well. You can go to your about page, your contact page, your services page, all the different pages. If you have products, you can go to your product pages. You can plug them into the tools and you can see 2 things. How fast is the page loading, right? And is it working on mobile devices in the way that Google thinks it should? And don't be afraid if you see Google kind of giving you a bad grade. A lot of us are figuring this out now because the Google standards are changing. So I don't want you to feel like you've got to fix everything at once. If you've got a few website problems, you probably won't. And that's okay, because the truth is, every month or every quarter, have you done at least one thing that can help you really improve people's experience? Can you make things more delightful for them? Can you make things more exciting? So I know we're coming to the end. Like I said, when you download this, you can click on all those links that I shared and dig in a little bit more. And Robin, I'm so glad that was helpful. Google testing tools are my best friend. There's lots of other ones out there too. So it's not like other testing tools are bad, but for me personally, I'm usually gonna wanna compare whatever Google's telling me with some other things as well, right? Because I know Google has such a big impact for a lot of us in driving traffic. And thanks, Michelle. I really appreciate it. So again, join us May 5th. I'm really excited about our next DDI. I will have Justin back here with me, and we will essentially be talking about lessons we've learned from being entrepreneurs and running businesses. And I think it's going to be real fascinating because our backgrounds are really different, although we've worked together for now 10 years. My JB Media anniversary was on April 1st, and so it's been a full decade since we started working together. You can also dig into some of our online courses that we're running right now, but I've also included some of my favorite different tools and places to go for help. So here you can see design and usability resources, things like Crazy Egg, Hotjar, Mouseflow. These are all places where you can actually test your website for different aspects of performance. Things like Hotjar and Crazy Egg, if you're using WordPress and some of the other platforms that are out there, they let you do things like click tracking and heat mapping, and they're pretty affordable. So if you want to even get deeper than Google, you can actually go to a deeper level and really understand when people look at your website what they're paying attention to. Also, if you just want to understand UX, UI, usability, these are some of my favorite places to go to learn more, to keep up to date with studies, to keep up to date with the people that are at the cutting edge of this field. And again, one of my absolute favorites, Think with Google. I read it every week. I find the free information that they share there totally invaluable. They're just giving it away for free in a lot of ways. So again, if there's any questions, we're right at the top of the hour. I'm glad to answer anything that you have about your own website. If you need some assistance with Google Analytics, please feel free to email me. And thanks so much, Michelle and Robin. My email is at the end of this slide deck. And so you'll see all my personal information here. If you are using Google Analytics and you need some resources to learn more, I'm glad to send you some of that information. One thing I'd suggest to everybody, if you're not using it, sign up for the free Google Analytics Academy and learn directly from the Google Masters for free. That's how you will get really, really good at Google Analytics, and you'll be able to get a free certification that is a really valuable certification to have. And so I really encourage everybody to check out the Google Analytics Academy, especially as we go into this new version of Google Analytics, which is going to make things really different. But yeah, and thank you, Mary Lynn. Thank you, Angela. I'm so glad you all made it. I often end classes with this quote from Jonah Sachs, but it's one of my very favorites. Good marketers see consumers as complete human beings with all the dimensions real people have. So like I said earlier, the number one things you can walk away with today, your website is an evolving, adapting, living thing. It grows with your business. It's never finished. There's always ways to make it better. And at the end of the day, all good usability is about is delighting people, making them love your brand, making them love your website, and hopefully turning them into a long-term customer. So thank you all so much for being here today. I'm so glad to see you. Like I said, you will get an email tomorrow with a link to the recording of this, as well as my slide deck. Thanks, Rebecca. And I want to encourage everyone, if you know somebody that can use this information, please feel free to share the link with them so they can look at it. All of our videos are up on Vimeo for the digital drop-in. We also have a JB Media Institute YouTube channel. So we are posting everything out into the world. So even when people can't make it to the webinars, if there's anything that we can ever do to support people you know, just share those links with them anytime. And again, have a great rest of your week, and don't hesitate to reach out if I can help with more specific information for your website in the future. Have a great day.